180, center.
Fifth and final school of day 2 of the 2023 ACC football kickoff media event. They are now in the room, and it's the Cavaliers of Virginia. As Coach Elliott and his team makes their way to the stage, we'll remind everybody in the room, as you ask the question, please identify yourselves, the media agency that you are with, and we will get through as many questions with Coach as we can in about 15 minutes, and then we'll spend 5 minutes with each of his student athletes. So who in the room would like the first question for Coach? We see hands, like 5 of them just jut up at the same time. We'll start on the right-hand side, young man in the blue shirt, about the 7th row.
Noah Teague, Technician Sports. Coach, you brought in transfer quarterback Tony Muskett this offseason. Could you speak on his game and what stands out about him?
Great question. Really excited, and you'll have a chance to hear from him in a minute, and he'll be able to probably express better what I'm about to express. But the thing about Tony Muskett is from day one, you saw his confidence, and it's not a cockiness, it's not an arrogance, but it's a confidence. And from day one, he wasn't afraid to go into the locker room and say, you know what, fellas, I'm here to compete. I'm going to do it the right way. I have tremendous amount of respect for everybody in here, but this is the way that I lead. And it quickly galvanized the guys. And when you go back and you watch him on film, one, he was very, very productive at Monmouth. He led his team the way that he needed to lead to be successful. You watch him throw the ball in adverse conditions, and you see that the accuracy is there. That's always a challenge when you're evaluating, because you do a lot of evaluation on tape, especially when you're dealing with the transfer portal. But when you got to see him in spring practice, like, okay, now he does throw an accurate ball. You know what? It's a very catchable ball, and then just from there, he just continued to be who he is, and he's a guy that's got a lot of confidence, but he knows how to manage it. He's a team first guy. He's always going to promote his teams, and he just has that it factor. It's hard to describe when you talk about quarterbacks. You can't coach it, right? But you know it when you see it, and he just has that presence about him. And I think his teammates will attest to that, and you'll be able to gauge that once you hear him speak.
To your left, Coach, first row.
Coach Dan Tortora, wakeupcalldt.com. Obviously, last season, off the field and on the field, there was adversity and things that nobody should have to go through off the field. How have you seen this community come together? How have you seen these guys really put those numbers on their chest every single day and just live something they shouldn't have to live through, but live it so strongly and so proudly for their brothers?
Right, great question. And first and foremost, got to thank the college football community, which includes all of you guys and everybody across the country for just the outpour of support. We felt it in Charlottesville, and the same thing with the community of Charlottesville, the University of Virginia, our student body. Everybody came to our side immediately. While we were in shock, trying to regain our footing from what just happened, they held us up in the interim until we could kind of get ourselves grounded and figure out how we're going to navigate forward. And this situation is unprecedented. There's no preparation. And even though I experienced tragedy as a young person and throughout the course of my life, it still doesn't prepare you for a situation like this. And the way that you get through it is together. And that's the beauty of football. It's an ultimate team sport, and it forces you to sacrifice and rely on somebody else. And it forces you to do hard things that you may not want to do because you have a connection and a bond and a love for your teammates. And so these guys really is what gave me the inspiration to lead, because it's very difficult in a situation like that to know what to say, know what to do, and then to even to have an understanding of, is it working? And trying to figure out, how to lead not just the players, but the staff, and then also the athletic department, through that situation. But these guys accepted the challenge, right? They understood that they have a responsibility to Lavelle, Devin, and Deshaun to move forward in the right way. Not moving on, there's a difference. That was a big message within the program is, we're not moving on. We're never going to forget this. We're not going to put this to the side and act like it didn't happen. Unfortunately for us, it's our new normal. It's a part of our lives and will be a part of our lives forever, and we'll constantly be reminded of it. And there's going to be tough days. and they learned that they have to lean on each other in tough days. They also learned, the importance of football, the structure that it provides, the safe haven that it provides, the community that it provides. So to watch these guys every single day, they made a decision, right? The guys that came back in January made a decision to embrace the hard and live it every single day. And these guys have done it beyond any expectations that I had of them. And it started with just having an attitude of gratitude and appreciation for life. I think for us that are in it, and hopefully going forward, anybody that has a connection to our program will see that it's bigger than us. And ultimately, as we all chase purpose in life, we realize that purpose is not about me. It's about what I can do for others. And they didn't ask for this. University of Virginia didn't ask for this, but we were given, this opportunity. Tremendous challenge, but we were given an opportunity. And the opportunity that we see is that we can take something that, is unexplainable, unprecedented, very, very difficult, right? You wouldn't wish it on anybody, and we can find the beauty of it and use it to inspire others going forward by the way that we respond, by the way that we play, by the way that they live, by the way that they go forward in the future, and the individual ways that they decide that they want to honor the legacies of Lavelle, Devin, and Deshaun.
Coach, your next 4 questions are going to come from the very back to the right. Just follow the aisle all the way up.
Hey, Tony. Greg Medea from Charlottesville Daily Progress. What's the advantage to returning as much as you do on the defensive line? What does it do for your defense, and what's the advantage there?
Yeah, you're hoping that the advantage is that you got leadership, and what I've learned in my experience in the college game is that the game is won in the trenches, and the best teams that I've been around, you had great leadership at quarterback, and then you had great leadership along the front, in particular the defensive line, and so you're returning a lot of guys with game experience. Right, I think that's going to help the transition on the outside at corner, where we lost some very, very productive guys. You're not having to reteach, reinstall, right? You're just having to refine. And then hopefully what that's going to do is that's going to allow for the transition and the development of the young guys that we've brought in. So it gives you the ability to lead, push forward, bring along, develop, and hopefully set the tempo, because the game is going to be won in the trenches, and it's a team sport. You don't win championships on offense or defense. You win it collectively, but when you got good experience on defense, it's going to challenge the offense to get better.
The row just behind him.
Hey, Tony, Gene Wong with the Washington Post. All the players you brought with you today are from Northern Virginia, and I'm curious if that's intentional and how much that maybe reinforces your commitment to recruit the state and specifically Northern Virginia as well.
Right, so I don't think that was a parameter for the selection of these guys. I think it's their individual attributes and the contribution that we expect for the team. But I'm glad that you pointed that out, because there is an emphasis to recruit the state of Virginia, and I think we all know that it's a very, very talent-rich area, in particular Northern Virginia and some of the other areas. And we have a challenge at the University of Virginia from a recruiting standpoint. We're responsible for mending relationships. We have to change the perception of Virginia football, and the way that I kind of equate it is nowadays, young people in particular, the audience that you're recruiting, they don't grow up loyal to a school. Like they grow up loyal to players. Right, and so you think about all of the great players, that have come through. There's some really, really good players. It's our job to reintroduce them to the great players of the past, and then our guys have to do a good job on the field, right, to create that excitement and renewed interest in the program. And then we gotta continue to build relationships with the guys at the high school level, the coaches in particular, and then more importantly, guys gotta come to the program and have success. That's the way that we're going to turn, the tides from a recruiting standpoint in the state of Virginia.
And the gentleman sitting to his right.
Tony, Mike Barber, Richmond Times-Dispatch. Obviously, there were some bumps and struggles as you adjusted to the new offense at this program last year, installing what you wanted to install. How much progress do you think we'll see kind of early this season? How far did you get with that process? And then specifically, if you would address the wide receiver position, where obviously you had to rebuild a lot of that room.
Right. So, great question. So I'll attack the first part. I think you'll see a significant amount of progress. I think what you've seen is there's a lot more buy-in, and in fairness to the guys that were there last year in transition, they had a lot of success, from a Virginia standpoint, and in their minds, why are we changing? And unfortunately, just a transition in coaching, you're going to change. There's going to be a philosophical change. And so there was a lot of things. You got pretty much a brand new offensive line. You got all kind of different dynamics that contributed to it. Not making excuses, but just kind of setting the context of the situation. But I think in year 2, now what you have is when we went to spring practice, there wasn't as much of the installation of the program, the core values, the practice habits that were having to be corrected in spring practice 1, right? That you can focus more on the details of the system, right? To get down to building the fundamentals that you need. And so I think as we transition past that into year 2, there's a lot more familiarity with what we're doing. And then you look at Tony's transition and even Calandria, they came in, and for them, right, they had a different perspective, ready to change. And I think in fairness to them and prior to, there was a little bit more ease of transition, because when I look at it, what coaches did before I got there was really, really good, but it was unique. It was different, right? It was something that they kind of did on their own, that they developed, which was different. So the terminology, all that stuff was different. So I think you'll see an improvement, a significant improvement, just with the continuity of what we're doing and guys understanding. And now that they understand, they can play fast, right? They can play physical, they can play free, which gives them the ability to execute at a higher level. And in particular, the wide receiver position, obviously the transition from a coaching standpoint, wasn't expecting that, but understand it, respect it, but then you got to make a decision and move on. And you were losing a lot of experience, but also you have a ton of opportunity. And you look at Malachi Fields, a young man that early on we identified that was going to be a contributor, and then he injures his foot and he misses majority of the season. And then now Demeek's got another year in the system, and so he's further along in the transition process. You add in Malik Washington, a guy that's very, very talented, that had productivity at Northwestern, that's now in the system, that provides some leadership, and J.R. Wilson, a young man that, when given an opportunity late in the season when the big 3 were down for injury, he showed what he was capable of. So I think that the ability is there. And now that we've had a spring and we'll have 25 practices in the fall, I think you'll start to see a little bit more continuity. And then also with them working with the quarterbacks in the offseason, a little bit more chemistry, which will give a little bit more rhythm, right? Which will, and again, you focus on the drop passes. And again, that's a function of a lot of things. But when you're trying to transition and you're thinking too much as a wideout, it's difficult to catch the ball. And a lot of that responsibility is on myself and my staff. And hopefully going forward, we won't have those issues. But I think the biggest thing is, we got more time, a little bit more experience in the system. Guys are thinking less. They're able to go out there and play free.
Coach, your last question, the very back of the room, right side.
Hey, Coach. Cameron Lemons-Debro, Demon Deacon Digest. Coach Elliott, you mentioned having success and trying to rebuild the image of Virginia football. I think level setting expectations is a healthy way of just keeping things going. What does success look like for Virginia football in 2023?
Great question. I think it's relative to the perspective in which you're asking and looking at it from, right? I think as a coach, there's different things that you look for, right, to quantify success. Externally, obviously your wins and losses is what people are going to determine, right? But our objective is to prepare to win every single football game, when we step on the field, right? Now, there's a lot that goes into fully being prepared. And so the expectation is that everybody understands that. And for me, what I want to see is I want to see a football team, right, that's playing complementary football, right, that is working together, right, that are complementing each other, that are having fun, that are playing with a tremendous amount of energy, a tremendous amount of passion. They're focused, they're playing physical. And I think if you establish those things, then you have prepared yourself to be in position to win. So for me, that's what I'm looking for from a success standpoint. Others will have expectations from a win-loss standpoint, and we want to win every single game. So our expectation is to win every single game, but we also understand that there's a certain quality of work, right, and investment in the process of preparation to have an opportunity to win come Saturdays.
Coach, thank you. We'll trade one Tony for another. If you want to trade with Tony Muskett, we'll bring that student athlete up for about 5